from Director of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. So he's going to be here to talk with our organization as well. So that's going to be held at Channelside. It's a luncheon. We have a President's Guest program, and to ensure you get a seat, we're taking memberships now. Okay, to ensure if you want to come to that, there'll be some great programs. So with that, I want to welcome you here. That's a little bit about Tiger Bay, and now I want to introduce my partner in crime and good friend, Don Madden.
You can tell how important this evening is to us by the way we're dressed. Greg dressed up with a tie. I'm wearing socks. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. We have somebody to the pledge. Rick, come on up here. Rick, Staley, can I borrow you? Come on up. Do the pledge. And you don't have to mention your name.
We don't have a screen. Well, I guess we're going to have a virtual flag. It's not here. So normally it's on the left of the stage. So let's go this way. And please stand and join me in a pledge to our flag that's invisible. I pledge allegiance. Thank you. And didn't you see that waving? Just try to visualize it, right? Waving in the wind. Beautiful.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Yes. And if we could have Terry Wines, if you could, invocation. If you could all please stand for.
Good evening, everyone. Let's join our hearts together. Gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together to discuss the very important issues that are before us, to listen with open hearts, and to give responses that will help bring us all clarity, that we may grow more empowered as a body for this community. Thank you for the freedom that we have to have these open discussions, to have these open and free elections. And Lord, just thank you again for all the love that you continue to offer us. We pray all this in his precious name. And all God's children who agree say,
Ed, do you have the list of elected officials? Elected officials, just stand up and we'll recognize you. There we go. Rick Staley. Okay.
Yeah, Ralph Lightfoot.
Moving right along. It comes to me to talk about the rules of the road. When Greg and I formed this club 4 years ago, we did it because we thought the nation was in peril, not necessarily Flagler County, but the nation. We have to be able to meet together and talk civilly. We have to be able to discuss things civilly, which is why in our club, civility is the rule. That's why there's 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 5 NPAs on our board. It's why we try and balance everything out. But those rules of civility carry over to this particular event. You're here as our guests. And as our guests, we'd like you to maintain the air of civility. So there'll be no applause lines, no cheering, no demonstrations of any kind. If you do, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. So it's going to be a quiet night on that side, a lot of good information on this side, and that's why we're all here. All right?
Yeah, and that takes us to our chair for this event, Mr. Jim Manfrey.
Thank you, Greg. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. I hope you all were safe during our recent events. We apologize for having to delay it, but I think we had good cause. I hope you keep in your prayers all of those in Southwest Florida who are suffering or have suffered through the hurricane. It was a devastating event for the state. I'd like to acknowledge all our candidates. I've been on that dais a couple of times in the past 20 years, so I know the butterflies you're feeling right now. I'd like you to relax, take a deep breath, and know that we're here for informational purposes. And if you want to take a quick wave to your supporters, that's okay too, because I know you can't do it without them. Okay, we have a great panel, and they're comprised of from different fields. First of all, I want to introduce Amelia Fulmer, who is our director of the Flagler Auditorium. Great event, so please support the Flagler Auditorium. We always have great stuff going on there. To my left is Sherry Dietrich. She's a real estate agent at Palmwave Realty, chair of the Flagler Tiger Bay Young Executive Program, and a rising young executive. Darrell Boyer, to my left, a recent graduate of the University of Florida, also a graduate of FPC, which we just found out, with a political science degree, a current graduate student at Florida State University, working on a master's, in applied American politics and policy. And he is a member of our Flagler Tiger Bay Club students, and he's eligible to vote. We can talk about politics later. Pastor Terry Wines, who just gave her an invocation. Thank you, Pastor, for coming. He's from the First United Methodist Church of Bunnell. If you know anything about his church, they do a lot of community outreach. Thank you, Pastor, for all you do for our community. My good friend, John Subers, who's a business executive from the community. Thank you. So just to go through exactly what you're going to be hearing, each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement. I will call on each of you to give your statement. We'll do it in reverse order on your closing. So you'll start. We'll start with Jane in a second, and then we will start with Courtney on the closing. There are 6 to 10 segment rounds of questions asked by the interview panel. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Our timekeeper, Danielle Anderson, right there, is going to be our timekeeper. She'll hold up her sign when there's 15 seconds. I'm going to ask you to try to keep within those 15 seconds because we want to get as many questions to you as we possibly can. And she will announce time's up when time is up. If a candidate names another participating forum candidate in their answer, the named candidate will then have 30 seconds to respond, and their answer will be final end in the exchange. And I will, monitor that and tell you when I believe the other candidate should respond. I reserve the right to ask follow-up questions if I don't believe you're getting to the heart of the question. In the first round, candidates will ask questions by the interview in alphabetical order, and then on the second round, we'll alternate and we'll do the reverse. Okay, and panelists also can ask follow-up questions. Just so you know how these questions were arrived at, they were developed from recorded reporter interviews in the community, questions submitted by the public to the Tiger Bay Club email, questions from panelists, questions from Tiger Bay Club members and board directors. So you'll see the questions have a variety of different topics, and we're going to try to keep this interesting. It's not the same question. There are about two or three questions that are the same question, but we try to alternate them as much as possible. So with that, I'd like to start with Jane, and if you would like to introduce yourself, you have 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Jane Gentile-Yude. My husband and I, Mark, are 20-year residents of Flagler County, previously 26 years in Miami-Dade County, where I had a day named after me when I left for 26 years of civic service. The first commission meeting I went to here in Flagler County, I'll never forget, I said, the meeting was in the old jailhouse. I actually went through the wrong entrance. I said, I'm new here. This is what I did in Dade County, but I'll have to prove to you that I can do things here in Flagler County. And I have been attending commission meetings and been involved in community projects, even though I promised my husband I wouldn't do it when we moved here, continuously for the 20 years that we lived here, and I just don't stop. I'm currently working on trying to get funding so we can have 2 extra helicopter pilots because we don't have a trauma center here, and I want our helicopter to go 24/7 instead of just 8 hours a day. 20 years of experience to me means a lot. You can ask me any question, just about, not everything, on anything that's happened in front of the county in the past 20 years, and I probably can give you an answer, at least a partial answer. I am honest. I will answer give you the same answer today as I gave you yesterday, as I will give you tomorrow. So when I go to sleep at night, I may have a lot on my mind, but how I'm going to answer will always be the same. And I love Flagler County. I'm so glad we came here. And I would like to spend the rest of my life trying to make this a better world as best as I can. And I thank you so much. And I thank Tiger Bay for sponsoring this and everyone who's here. Flagler Live, The Observer, everybody, thank you so much for coming and for listening to me. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. By the way, I should have mentioned that Jane is a candidate for County Commission District 4. Our next candidate was Will Furry, but he just declined to participate in this forum. He was a candidate for School Board District 2. Also, Kathy Hyder is not present. She told us that she was not feeling well, but she intended to participate, and she's a Palm Coast City Council member for District 4. So going on to our next candidate for your opening, Alan Lowe, who is a Palm Coast City Council member for District 2. Alan?
Thank you. And I too would like to thank everybody that's here. I appreciate you showing up tonight, everybody that's listening in on the radio, Tiger Bay for hosting it, the panel, all that kind of stuff. Thank you. My brain might be a little scattered tonight because I just got back from Fort Myers, running over there. My church, the Flagler County Baptist Church, ran over there with a 26-foot container full of food and water, and we distributed it. 7-hour ride back, so bear with me a little bit. I am a 39-year resident of Palm Coast. I'm a 35-year small business owner, local small business owner, and 33 years in my district. I'm running for Palm Coast City Council District 2. But as an FYI, if you're a Palm Coast resident, you vote for all districts, not just the one you live in. I grew up in Maine, moved down here, but I consider myself a Palm Coaster. 39 years here is longer than I lived up north. I've attended the majority of city council meetings over the last couple years, and I've stood at the podium dozens of times, fighting against things such as wasteful spending, against the self-appointed pay raise. Well, I fought against the 300% plus pay raise. I think they deserved a little bit. And I also fought in favor of renegotiating the Green Lion lease. And most recently, I fought to try to keep your tax payments down. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I have presented concerns on the infrastructure, our roads, the swales, our canals, and after going over to Fort Myers and seeing what happened over there, I think we really need to put a priority on it over here. We got very lucky. They have years of rebuilding to do over there. We got through it very nicely. You know, I consider myself a fighter because I fought at the podium for you. I'm a fighter for the people, and I don't think you can consider yourself a fighter if you've never stepped into the ring. And I've done it many, many times. So I just want to say that I am for the people. I have a proven history of fighting for the people, and I will continue to do so when elected as your city council member. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Our next candidate is Fernando Melendez, Palm Coast City Council member, District 4. Fernando?
Hello? Thank you. So before anything, I'd like to send my prayers out to all the Floridians that were affected by this catastrophic hurricane. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to say just two words that are deeply filled with gratitude to our first responders, firefighters, EMS, EMTs, law enforcement, volunteers, healthcare workers. And those two words are thank you for helping us get through all of this during this event that we just had. So good evening. My name is Fernando Melendez. And I want to thank Tiger Bay for setting up this event and inviting us all to participate in this platform. So we chose, like the majority of residents of Palm Coast, I chose Palm Coast to move to. We moved from New York. I moved here with my wife of 28 years, Sarah, she's in the audience. My son, Andrew, who's 26 years old. And we just fell in love with Palm Coast. We fell in love with everything it has to offer. I've been very, very involved in the local politics. You might say once I got here, I just hit the ground running. Was fortunate enough to serve on a couple of boards. Actually, I'm still serving on one. I am the vice chair of the Flagler County Planning and Development Board. That's allowed me to take in a lot of knowledge on the lay of the land and on the general codes and statutes on general development. So I like to transfer that knowledge over to City Council, where I think it'll bring some value. I also served on the Palm Coast 2021 Redistricting Board. So I actually have some folks here, my friend to my left here, served on that board as well. So we have the honor of having our thumbprint on our district map. Having said that, so I worked for 25 years in New York in the school bus industry, both as a driver and as an elected union official. That was all the encouragement I needed to run and navigate for my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Our next speaker is going to be Leanne Pennington from County Commission, District 4. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Leanne Pennington. As he said, I'm the County Commission District 4 candidate. I recently won in the Republican primary. I'm happy to be here tonight. Again, I want to say, I think Fernando and Alan both said it well. It was a beautiful community we have here. We found that out again and again. The hurricane that recently came through, we're still a very tight community, even though we went through a tremendous amount of growth recently. But I was very encouraged to find a lot of people still doing what we've always done as a small community and reaching out and helping others and getting us cleaned up. It was very nice to see. I got into this race primarily because I've lived here almost 30 years. My husband and son live with us. I love this community. I think it's beautiful. I love our environment. I am concerned, though, through this period of growth that we may lose what we love about our community. I want to ensure that we have people on our board, such as myself and others, that care about us, that want to keep us remaining a tight-knit community, remaining beautiful environmentally, that we respect our historical places here, that we respect our agricultural that we have. We are going to go through a tremendous amount of growth. We do have a lot of land here, and that is true. But I want to ensure that we respect Palm Coast, we respect Flagler County, and that we continue to stay beautiful and prosperous throughout it. With that being said, I am concerned also, though, that we, through this growth, have only brought residential and not enough economically, commercial-wise. So I think that it's important that we continue to see people on these boards that want to continue to grow the tax base outside of residential, that want to bring in services here that we desperately need. And so those are things that I'm hoping that I can bring to this. I've been in the financial industry for over 20 years. I'm a chief fraud strategist for a large Canadian firm. I do a lot of strategy, work on return on investment, and I think that is something that is missing in the county commission.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. And our next speaker will be Teresa Carli-Pontieri from, she's a candidate for Palm Coast City Council member, District 2.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Teresa Carli-Pontieri, running for District 2 City Council. And at the risk of repeating what's already been said, I do have to thank everybody, including our city workers, our city staff, people that called the Emergency Operations Center their home for several days, our first responders, everybody from stormwater management to communications to even WNZF for just keeping the citizens informed through Hurricane Ian. It really was a community effort. Everybody just was all hands on deck. And it's something to be revered and really thankful for and proud of. So thank you to all of those that really helped our community over the last week and a half. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running. I love this city. I love this county. And I want to be a positive contributor to what is already a wonderful place to live. Really want to, as we undergo an incredible amount of growth and change, it's really important that we have a unique opportunity to look at our comprehensive plan and to make sure that we're growing the right way, that we are bringing in the right amount of industry along with residential, that we're bringing in business, that we're really growing in the right way, and that we're preserving our quality of life that all of us have come to love and appreciate, and that we are remaining a community, that we're offering services to our continuously aging community while welcoming more activities for some of our young adults, making sure that we're educating the right way, and that we're really just continuing to grow together in the right manner. And as we embark on this very daunting task of making sure it's done the right way, we really need people in office that have the best intentions of its citizens at its front of heart and mind. And I know my integrity. I know that I'm not in this for me. I'm in this for our citizens. And I trust my decision-making and my judgment with regards to the best decisions that really end in a net benefit to every citizen of this city. I've been an attorney for 7 years. My husband is a lieutenant in the fire service. I was born on an Air Force base in Boise, Idaho, and I have brothers that are current service members. We know what it's like to sacrifice for our community, and I want to continue down that road of giving back. And I look forward to advocating for all of you on City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Finally, Courtney Vanderbunt from Bunta. How do you?
Vandabunti.
Vandabunti, School Board District 2.
My maiden name was Green. I should have just kept that. But I think everyone did a great job thanking everyone and acknowledging, all the hard times that our community has been through these past few weeks. But I just want to give a special thank you to Tiger Bay for organizing this event. When I first heard of Tiger Bay and how it was a non-partisan organization with Democrats and Republicans and NPAs all working together for the good of our community, I have to admit I was a little skeptical. But when I saw it with my own eyes after attending a few luncheons, I saw how much of a beautiful example of unity that Tiger Bay is. So I just want to say thank you for organizing this event and inviting all of us candidates to be here to connect with the community members tonight and to answer the questions of community members from all backgrounds. So my background is one of a local educator. I think I'm of the rare variety that I was born and raised here in Flagler. I attended Old Kings Elementary, Indian Trails Middle School, and Flagler Palm Coast High School. After earning my degree in education from Florida State University, go Noles, I came back to teach here in Flagler, and I taught at Old Kings Elementary, Matanzas High School, and Flagler Palm Coast High School, where I was recognized for my student-centered and community-centered teaching with a Teacher of the Year award. I I also have 3 kids that go to school here. They all currently attend Old Kings Elementary. And when my youngest was born, I was lucky enough to be able to take some time off and spend some time with her. And when I entered back into the field of education, I started designing curriculum from home. And now I'm proud to say that I'm currently designing STEM curriculum for Harvard University. So I just want to reiterate that I'm super excited to be here and to answer questions from the community. As you know, it's just so important that as a community we remain united and we reach common ground. And despite our difference in backgrounds, that we remember that as a school board, the main goal is to provide our children with the highest quality education possible. And as your school board member, that is exactly what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. So we'll proceed to our rounds of questions. This is round 1. The interviewer for this will be Darrell Boyer, and he'll ask the same question to each of the candidates. Darrell?
So we'll start from your left on to your right. The question is, have you ever been arrested, received a traffic ticket, had your driver's license suspended, or have you had any contact with law enforcement due to any violation of the law? If so, please explain the place, year, the exact violation, and any sentence or fine that you received.
My first. Okay. No.
Well, mine will be a little more lengthy than that. No, I was arrested for DUI when I was in college. I was 20 years old, and that changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I have said numerous times that while I wish I didn't have to talk about that, I can't say that it wasn't a learning experience that I have not really kind of appreciated, because I wouldn't be here in this place if it weren't for that. I'm grateful that I got pulled over that night before I hurt somebody else or myself. And man, did I learn from that mistake. It really did change my life. My parents looked at me and said, well, you're on your own now, kiddo. And they really made me struggle through everything that type of experience causes. From a financial standpoint, from a personal standpoint, I had never failed at anything in my life up to that point. And that really was a humbling experience that I really just had to dust my shoulders off and say, this is some adversity that I've got to get through. And I didn't have the luxury of feeling sorry for myself or blaming anybody else. I really had to just, like I said, dust myself off and work really hard so that it became something that didn't define me, but rather became something that I could grow from.
So 22 years ago, I had my license suspended for, I think, about 2 days or something like that for failure to pay a fine. That is back in the day in a timely manner. That's back in the day when the check was literally in the mail. so it crossed paths as I got it. So, but it was adjudication withheld.
So I've never been arrested, thank God. I had the pleasure of working with school children in New York for the last 25 years as a school bus driver. So needless to say, my driving is impeccably clean with a commercial driver's license. And I also worked with the Department of Children and Family here as a state investigator. So I wouldn't have any of those 2 jobs had I been arrested in any time during my life. So, no.
I've never been arrested for anything. I have no criminal history. I did get a right turn on red ticket when we used to have the cameras. I can't tell you what the date was, but I'm glad we don't have those cameras anymore. Other than that, I honestly don't remember any speeding tickets, and I've never been arrested.
I've never been arrested, but I did get a speeding ticket about 3 years ago. I was on I-95 and the officer pulled me over. He was on a motorcycle and he said, "It's not your speeding, you just passed me." That really pissed me off. But I got my adjudication waived, whatever. I paid an attorney, and that's been it. No, I've never been arrested. I'm squeaky clean.
Thank you, candidates. Our next question will come from Sherry Dietrich, and this will be directed to Alan Lowe.
All the way down the table. All right. So, Alan Lowe. The city government continues to face challenges with a series of issues in recent months. The handling of the waste management contract and the splash pad at Holland Park, successfully managing growth and staff recommending property tax increase every year, despite the city's receiving record revenue. 2 national searches resulted in a lack of applications from quality external candidates for city manager. What do you plan to do to improve the performance of the city government and restore citizen trust?
That's a great question. And if we look back at one of the surveys that was done last spring, I believe it was, the city council, the question was, how would you rate the city council? I believe the question was, and favorably. And their result was a 68% unfavorable and a 32% favorable. So there's a lot of work to be done to improve trust and faith in city council. I think one of the issues that we've seen over the past couple of years is that the city council has an issue working together, and there's a lot of infighting going on. I don't see a lot of the city council sitting down individually with department heads and asking them what they actually need instead of what they just want for their departments. And I think in the future, when budget issues come up and so forth, in fact, I think we should start it now as a city council. They should be sitting down with the various department heads and getting a real handle on what the department's going to want for the future, for next year's budget, actually. The issues this year, you know, the way I see it is that the departments are presenting city council with their budget wishes, and the city council is approving it. And our current budget, I think, is $328 million. That's over $250 million for Palm Coast. And I think if the city council members met individually and had town meetings with people, that we could restore some trust and bring it back.
May I ask a follow-up question? Awesome. So you mentioned that the city council needs to maintain communication with department heads. And I noticed that a lot of elected officials forget the people. If you're elected, how will you maintain communication with the people of Palm Coast?
Well, I've actually already, not elected yet, but I've already had 3 or 4 public meetings at my home where I've just on Facebook said, let's come and talk about issues. The major issue that was discussed, of course, because I live in the C-section, became the dredging of the canals. I've also rented the community center here and put out on Facebook for public meetings. And I intend to continue to do that if elected. Now, obviously, we can't have other city council meetings, city councilors in the room with me. That would violate the Sunshine Law. But as an individual, I would go out and go around town to different venues and have public meetings so that I can hear what the people have to say. Because I stood at the podium during this budget issue, and there was, if you remember, Mayor Elfin set the three-legged stool up, and each of those legs was an issue with the city budget. But there was a 4th leg that was missing, and I brought up that he never mentioned the residents and what the residents thought about the issues. We had over 200 people, I believe. We filled the main room, filled the auxiliary room, and there was a line of 30 people having issues with, not that they were going to raise the millage rate, but because of value increases, their property taxes were going to go up, and they were very concerned about it. I don't think they were well listened to. But thank you.
Follow-up. Thank you, Alan, for that answer. All right, the next question comes from me to Fernando. The challenge for the city of Palm Coast has always been it was intentionally designed to be 100% residential. Commercial taxpayers pay a higher rate and consume less public services. Commercial activity has to make sense for both the city and the companies. For instance, the much publicized effort to make Palm Coast into Silicon Valley appears to have met with underwhelming results. The proliferation of storage units may not be ideal either. What are your thoughts on how to best attract and retain the right new businesses and grow existing ones to greater success?
Thank you. So economic development is something that I keep pounding the table on. We need to keep open for business. We need to not discourage any businesses from coming in. We just have to make sure that we open our doors, be business friendly with them. And we do have to start taking the opportunity to start transitioning that tax burden from rooftops. I kind of see sometimes that Palm Coast, or I feel that I see Palm Coast being in a kind of wait and come visit us mood. It doesn't work that way. We have to be proactive. We have to go out there. We have to focus, laser focus on bringing in outside money back into the city, and so that we do not have to, like, again, we don't have to depend on the tax base of our residents. Something has to give, and the way we do that is by being proactive. We just hired a new person for the economic development department. That's my major. I have a master's degree in political science with a heavy concentration in economic development. I think I bring great value when it comes to that. I'm hoping to work with that team. That's my team. So if I get elected, I will do the best I can to make that happen. Thank you.
All right. First of all, if I just ask all the panelists, all the candidates, to direct their comments to the audience. We're just questioners. It's good to make eye contact to them. I just have a follow-up, Fernando. What particular industry do you think we should be trying to attract to the city that is not here presently, and why would you pick that industry?
All right. So again, that's another great question. I think that Palm Coast has to stop limiting themselves to the service industry. We have everything in Palm Coast that we need, and it's all on the service industry. We need manufacturing. I think we need artificial intelligence. We need video. Audio. We need more technology, is what I'm saying. And these are all jobs that bring in solid positions, better paying jobs. And that's what we need to diversify. And I don't see that happening. So that's why I'm very eager to work with this department, because that's where my passion is at. And I think we can make a big difference and strides in that area.
All right. Our next question will be from Darrell Boyer to Teresa Carli-Pontieri.
Thank you. So the question is, the challenge for the city of Palm Coast has always been it was intentionally designed to be 100% residential. Commercial taxpayers pay a higher rate and consume less public services. Commercial activity has to make sense for both the city and the companies. For instance, the much publicized effort to make Palm Coast into Silicon Valley appears to have met with underwhelming results. The proliferation of storage units may not be ideal either. What are your thoughts on how to best attract and retain the right new businesses and grow existing ones to greater success?
So what a lot of people don't realize at this point in Flagler County, we are only 8% operating commercial and about 90% residential. About 2% is agricultural right now. And the issue with that, there's so many issues with that, but the big one is that obviously the tax burden falls on us, the homeowners. We just saw what that results in. It results in us not being able to go to rollbacks and having to continuously either keep the millage rate where it is or possibly entertain an increase because taxes are being paid by the roofs that are in this county. And we really have to change that. I think the best way to go about that is to make sure that as we are expanding westward, we are focusing on light industrial for multiple reasons. One, absolutely, it does help the tax base. It helps diversify that tax base, brings in more money for the county. Two, it provides good paying jobs. And three, and this is a huge one that people don't really talk about enough, is it does take up our public resources less fire, less police. It puts a strain less on those public resources, yet it provides a larger net benefit for our city and our county. So as we move forward, we really have an opportunity to make sure that we are looking at this growth in a robust manner, and we are only approving a certain percentage of residential compared to commercial with a special focus on light industrial so that we can make sure we're taking in the money and not having to expend resources.
Teresa, if I could just follow up, I happen to consult with a lot of commercial developers. They often complain that it's a difficult process here to get through, and that inhibits them from coming here, both small and large. commercial developers. Do you agree with that sentiment? And if you do, how do you see making that better?
I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And as a small business owner, my husband and I can attest to the difficulty in opening and operating a business. As a staunch conservative, I'm a fan of smaller government, less bureaucracy, less regulation. Obviously, we have regulation in place for a good reason, for safety purposes. But we really need to make sure that we're working with the Chamber of Commerce and working with the people that are looking to come here and open business and have an open dialogue with them. Hey, if you didn't choose Palm Coast, why didn't you choose Palm Coast? And what can we do in the future to attract more businesses to come here? We really need to make sure that we still are engaging in residential development, because obviously businesses need to make money and they want to know that there's going to be roofs that are going to bring them those funds. But I think really the trick is to make sure we're not overburdening them with expenses and regulation. We're making this a very business-friendly atmosphere for them to not only open their business, but then also to run it. And that we're working very closely with the Chamber of Commerce to continue to feed local businesses so that they thrive here.
Thank you, Teresa. Our next question will be John Subers, and he'll be asking a question to Leanne.
Ms. Leanne, in keeping with the economic theme, what are your plans to bring technology into West Flagler?
Into West Flagler. So that is the future of us, right? We're moving west. Countywide, my thoughts for bringing in economic development, very, very simple things could be done here. I don't know if anybody has looked at our economic development website, first of all. If you were to go to it, you would not be able to determine where we have commercial space, what's for sale in the county, what inducements we offer. There's nothing like that. There's a phone number to call. If I were to go to Volusia County and I was a scout, in Minnesota looking for a place, I could go right into Volusia County, know exactly where I could put my business, know exactly what kind of inducement I could get. And not even have to reach out on the telephone, and I don't understand, I'm hoping that we can get to that place where we are proactively identifying where we're going to place commercial, that we have a website that's conducive to it, that puts that out there. And I feel like those are very simple things that we could be doing to attract more business. That's my hope for us, is that technology-wise, that we get a website that actually is proactively identifying where our commercial can go, what type of inducements we offer, and such. The other thing I would like to say, though, is I feel just keeping on that is and you asked the question, I don't think we can afford to be picky about what type of commercial we bring in any longer, given that that we are so top-heavy on residential taxes.
If I could just follow up, Leanne. So what I hear often is that the infrastructure isn't on the west side as it is, when I say west of US 1, as it is on the east side. Do you agree with that? And what particular infrastructure do you think needs to be improved? And how does the county go about funding that?
Yeah, and I think we learned that or saw it again during the hurricane. We don't have the resources out there. We don't have any. They're all in wells. We don't have the water. We don't have the sewage out there. So there's a lot to be done if we're talking about moving west with industry. My hope, though, for that, when we talk about county versus what will be westward in the city, is that we continue to stay agriculture mainly in theme when we go west, and that we build upon our agricultural resources out there. And, that's my hope for them.
Thank you, Leanne. Pastor Wines will ask the next question to Courtney.
How would you plan to ensure that our youth are getting the best possible education while managing these hot topics such as critical race theory, LGBTQ in the schools?
So if I were to give you a one-word answer there, I would say transparency. Actually, let's make it 2 words. Transparency and unity. So the current school board is lacking both, especially unity. So in order to ensure that our students are getting the highest quality education possible, it's important that the board is transparent and united in communicating with the public that critical race theory is not a standard and it is not in Flagler schools. Flagler Schools has been, and I know this as a student, I know this as a teacher, I know this as a parent. Flagler Schools advocates for the governor-approved standards-based learning. And those are the standards that are in our schools. And as a school board member, I will ensure that those standards remain in our schools and that we're focusing on providing our students with high-quality instruction that is standards-based. The other thing is unity. A lot of precious time was wasted with our current board, arguing about personal beliefs and inserting their own personal agendas when they could have been talking about, solving important local issues that our students and parents and families were facing. So as a school board member, I will, dedicate myself to improving the transparency and improving the unity on the school board.
So if I could just follow up, Courtney. So you talked about the lack of unity. What type of personal attributes do you have that would bring that type of unity to this board?
The ability to have a respectful discourse with, fellow board members when we don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything, because, no 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, let alone 5 people, are going to be able to see eye to eye on everything. So it's important that they can, have a respectful conversation and hear all sides of the argument and listen to all the voices, especially in our community, to hear how our community members, how our parents, how our families, how our staff members and our teachers are being impacted, and working together to make decisions that are in the best interests of those constituents and not the board members and their personal agendas.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the things that are most concerning to me are that the majority of our country, they can't read past the 3rd grade reading level. We have many people that can't write a checkbook. We have many people that can't balance a checkbook. You mentioned that we have many community issues. What are some of those that we have within our community as it relates to our school board?
Yeah, so I think you just mentioned 2 of the big ones there. So, COVID was hard on everybody, and we've seen our reading levels have decreased, and COVID is a reason for that, but they could have increased before COVID as well. So, going back to what I said about unity and being able to have important, respectful discussions on the board so that we can work together to figure out how we can increase those reading scores, and increasing that financial literacy is essential to improving as a district here in Flagler. The Flagler Schools has an excellent strategic plan, which I would invite all of you to go look at on the Flagler Schools website. It's very easy to find. And in that strategic plan are measurable and attainable goals for increasing our reading levels across 3rd grade and higher grade levels as well. To speak about increasing financial literacy, such as balancing a checkbook, I absolutely agree. We need to improve our efforts in increasing the financial literacy of our students. And one of the things that Flagler does at Matanzas is they have a flagship, a bank flagship. And I think that this is something that we need to implement across all schools, is to give our students more meaningful opportunities in financial literacy and more hands-on opportunities to learn about, taxes and checkbooks and credit scores and all those important things that our students are going to have to face.
Thank you. Amelia will ask this question to Jay.
Good evening. So what are your plans to bring technology into West Flagler?
Well, to answer the question, I consider all of Flagler County, not just West Flagler, as very, very important, because even though we are District 4, you have to live in District 4, you represent the county across the board equally. Okay, I would like to see some manufacturing come in. Not everybody graduates college. I don't want to see the farmlands. I do agree with Leanne Pennington. I think we need to preserve our agricultural base out west. I don't want to see the farms disappearing for all technology. I think we need to spread things out. What concerns me is that unincorporated Flagler County right now, 65% of our land is vacant, and our residential is only 12% of the land in all of Flagler County, and we pay the majority of taxes. So we have a lot of land, and I think we need to work with the schools, because in order to bring technology in, we have to offer people coming here that their children are going to have good schools to attend. And our ratings for our Flagler school, no offense to Catherine Middlestad, I think she's doing a great job. Our Flagler school rating...
Jane, your time is up. For that
Okay.
question. But I do want to follow up. So, again, one of the complaints I hear is that the internet connectivity, we talk about for our school children, is a question I want to ask Courtney at some point. Without that type of connectivity, students on the west side, you talked about, there are a lot of young families, because that's the only area of our county that's really affordable west of US 1. But they need to have connectivity to the internet in order to be able to do business, or for school children to be able to connect to the internet to do their work. How would you help in that?
Oh, absolutely. That's been one of my main things. The west side, in my opinion, has been ignored because there are not that many voters out there. The internet, the lack of internet out there, especially during COVID, was very unfair to the children out there. Okay, we really need to improve the broadband out there, and we need to improve drainage out there. We need fire rescue. We need a lot out west, but we do need the internet to keep those kids and everybody up to date. This is the 21st century, and I will do everything I can to see that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Okay, our next question, which will be for all the candidates, will come from Amelia Fulmer.
So each of you will answer the question.
Sure. I apologize, Leanne. And just wave at me if you think that you want to follow up.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I actually did. The moment that we got off topic, I thought, let's talk about broadband for a minute. I did talk to the county this past week because there is an actual citizen group that is working hard to get broadband further out west. It is now technically in Daytona North and moving upward. But the county did confirm that they are actually applying for federal grant. There's a lot of federal grant money right now for that. So, and it's still on track to go with Charter Communications to be out there in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Thank you for following up. Amelia?
So each of you answered the question. Have you ever declared bankruptcy, or have you had a civil judgment rendered against you by any court of law? And if so, explain the circumstances. We can start with Jane.
No.
I don't remember any. No. Other than the red light ticket. I guess that's civil.
I never declared bankruptcy.
No. This one's short for me. No.
No.
Okay, that was round 3. Went very quickly. Okay, this is a question that is near and dear to my heart, and hopefully is to each one of you. And this is a question we're going to ask of each of you because we think it's so important. So we'll start with Fernando. How can we make housing in Flagga County affordable for residents?
So, to me, that's a very important question. It isn't enough to talk about it and acknowledge that we have a housing crisis, but we have to do something about it. We really do. Sitting on the planning board, I've seen a lot of development companies come and go, and they're developing everywhere. And I'm when it comes to multifamily housing, I'm a big proponent of it because it's not just it's more than just a product. It's an option for our workforce community. These people, when I say people, I mean healthcare workers, law enforcement, EMS, firefighters. They don't start out with $50,000, $60,000 a year. And if you don't want them to come to our city from Hastings or Palatka, we want to house them here. So yes, I'm a big proponent of housing. And how do we propose to do that? We have to sit down with the developers, the city, all the stakeholders, and lay it all out on the table so everybody walks out of there knowing what to expect. But remember that as citizens, we need to go in there knowing that there's rules, laws, and regulations that we need to abide by. And we need to let the development happen. If not, we're going to end up getting sued. But let's do it right. Let's help out our citizens and get housing that's affordable. Not affordable housing that's affordable. Thank you.
Okay. Again, I'm going to ask each of you, every one of you, this question because we think it's so important. But if you try not to just repeat the prior, but try to zero in on exactly how you think this can be accomplished. Teresa, you're up next. I'd like to.
So again, you'll hear me say this a lot tonight because I think it's very important that we're not looking at these issues in silos, but we're looking at an overall comprehensive plan of where Flagler County and where Palm Coast is going. And when we're determining whether or not we need multifamily housing and whether or not we need affordable housing, it's not a yes or no question. It's how much. We need affordable housing. We need multifamily housing. We want to make sure that we don't lose the single family homes and that we don't become a concrete nightmare, of course. But we really need to base how much affordable and multifamily housing, and those are not mutually exclusive, obviously. We need to make sure we're basing what we're doing on what's coming to Palm Coast. An example of what I'm speaking about is Advent Health is opening in May of 2023. That is going to come with it an immense amount of jobs, which is great, but they're not all nurses and doctors. They're not going to be making a lot of money and can't afford a $500,000 house or a $350,000 home. A lot of them are young professionals just starting out in their careers. Some are going to be students. The people that make that hospital run are not just the nurses and doctors. They're the people that clean the rooms and serve food at midnight to our people that are getting off of their long shifts. So we really need to make sure we're looking at a comprehensive plan and we're determining this is what's coming. So this is what we need to accommodate these folks and then make sure that's worked into the comprehensive plan.
Although, Courtney, this is not exactly in your bailiwick, we do think it's important that you answer it just simply because to attract good teachers, like Fernando said, or first responders, we have to have housing that's affordable for them. So how do you see the school board's role in this particular concern?
Well, so highly rated schools, are important to every community because that's what attracts, our professionals and our local business owners and the people that make our community go around. So it's very important that we have, like Fernando said, housing that is affordable. And I just know that with a strong school board would come highly rated schools, which would attract, more business and opportunities to have that affordable housing so that our bus drivers can have housing that is affordable so that, as Teresa mentioned, the employees at the hospital that aren't the doctors and the nurses and the administrators can have housing that is affordable and so on. That's all I got.
Thank you. Jane, would you like to answer that?
I do agree with Fernando. There is a big difference between affordable housing and housing that is affordable. Big, big difference. Affordable housing is a government program where the developers get tax breaks and they hardly pay any property tax. That's not what we need. We need housing that is affordable. When I first moved to Florida, I got a little condo in Hialeah. I couldn't afford a house, and it was wonderful. I raised my son there. And I do agree that we need to start building up instead of out, because not everybody can afford a single-family home. But when we build up and build condominiums, we have to make sure that there are schools. And I'm in favor of ownership. I'm so much in favor of a condominium with a low down payment for teachers, for firefighters. There's pride in home ownership. I'm all for ownership as opposed to rental, because then you become part of the community. And I would like to see certain areas where we have the condos, like where I came from in Hialeah, and we have schools that are close by, and the infrastructure is there. We cannot all have single-family houses.
Jane, I'd like to ask a follow-up question to that. So, do you find it beneficial to go out to the public and get their point of view on if they would like to be in a condo or a single-family home of themselves when looking to make housing more affordable for residents?
Absolutely. I think what the public wants is what it's all about. That's why you put yourself out for public service. I would never just make a decision based on what I think. It's what everybody else thinks. That's what you're there for the people, not for yourself.
Leanne, you're next, but I just want to, if you don't mind, just a little diversion on this, is that in order to, we all want more affordable housing, housing that's affordable, but you need to incentivize developers, and developers are corporations. They're there to maximize their profit. So how, as an entity in the county government, how do we, and I know this, and I will ask others this as well, so I'm not just putting you on the spot, but how do we incentivize developers to make homes that are in that affordable range, rather than maximizing their profits to whatever the market rate is?
So I'm probably going to have an unpopular answer for some people, but I am not in the mindset that the local government incentivizes developers to build a product that's affordable. The government, our county government did make an ordinance to bring affordable housing. You could put tiny homes, manufactured, things of that nature. It seems to have not taken off. We don't have developers building that type of product. Obviously, it's either not profitable or not what the county is asking for. I mean, the city has made tremendous strides in approving a lot of condos, townhomes, apartments. In theory, when those are actually built, which none of them have really been built yet, it's supposed to balance out the affordable housing here. And right now, apartments, they went from $700-800 to $1,500 overnight, it seems like. So I'm hopeful that, once what has been approved gets built, that the housing becomes more attainable and affordable around here. What I'd like to see us do is actually bring a living wage so that housing is more attainable. I think that is the answer here for this county in particular.
Thank you, Leanne. Same question to you, Alan, that I asked of Leanne.
Could you repeat it, please?
Is it a supply and demand issue, or is it a government intervention issue?
First, I want to one step backwards, because I did make a mistake, and for transparency, 30 years ago, I did have a foreclosure, so I had a civil thing against me 30 years ago. I don't want to be attacked out there by somebody for forgetting that. So I think that we need to balance economic development with the affordable homes, or homes that are affordable. For instance, and I don't agree 100% with what was mentioned earlier, that Palm Coast was initially 100% directed towards residential, because the Hargrove Industrial Park, when I moved here in 1983, was there. And when I helped my dad move down here in 1978, it was there. So I think there was an idea that there needed to be some industrial, or an industrial park from the beginning. What I see, and what I would love to see, is there's a railroad spur out in Hargrove Grade. Sunbelt Chemical at the end of Hargrove Grade has the railroad spur that comes into it. But if we were to extend that in, we could then go out and headhunt larger businesses. I'd like to see aerospace businesses come in, but bring in bring in businesses that can pay people a wage that's enough to afford the house, instead of changing the housing market down. Let's pay people enough that they can afford to live here. And time's up.
And again, our questions are generated from the public. I'm glad you pointed that issue out, that 100% residential. I had to say it because that's the way it was written, but you're absolutely right. Yes. I'm sorry. Okay, Fernando, do you want to respond?
So I am a big proponent for the city to be able to step in and talk with the developers about helping out. That's the way I bought my first home, through a first-time home buyers program in New York. Put a minimal down payment. They give you what was it? You put the minimum down, and then you get the they give you the incentive. What is it? I forgot the name, but if you own the home for 25 years, you get to keep exactly. So it's what I'm always saying. It is our responsibility as a government to create opportunity. Doesn't matter what and what area. It could be in work, in jobs, housing, but we need to get involved and get these developers who want to come here. They want to build development here. Well, guess what? Help the cause here. Let's all work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando.
I was never asked about my opinion on working with developers like my opponent was.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I feel right now that developers are running the Flagler County Commission. I don't believe that the commissioners are reading anything. I don't think they're doing their studying. And the developers are just doing whatever they want. I need that needs to stop. The developers have a right to make money, but they do not have a right to build and destroy the infrastructure. We need to have a more cooperative working relationship. And I think we do need to promote, as Fernando said, some development that's townhouses and condominiums. There is no shame in small homes. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question will be asked by Pastor Wines to Teresa.
And again, I'm going to read the question as written. What is your solution to the homeless issue?
Wow. Such a short question with so many important implications. I think that the homeless issue is very largely grounded in mental health issues that have not been sufficiently addressed in our county. There was a study done just, I think, a year ago that read that 67 reported homeless folks were in our county, and I think all but 11 of those had nowhere to live at all, not any place that they called home. And a vast majority of people who suffer from homelessness also suffer from substance abuse or other mental health issues. So we need to not look at this as a superficial issue, but dig a little bit deeper and figure out how we can help these people on a mental health and substance abuse level. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is something, again, that we don't bring enough attention to. And a lot of people are forced into homeless situations because of that as well. So we really need to talk to these folks and our community leaders who are out there trying to help these people every single day and figure out how we can get to the root of these problems and try to get grants to help these people. There's a lot of grants out there that I don't feel like we're taking advantage of, so that we can really get some more money into the county that we're not necessarily having to increase taxes for, but that go directly to the heart of this issue.
Thank you. Darrell Boyer will ask a question to Leanne.
Thank you. Do we need a public transportation system with dedicated routes, or do you remain with the present call system?
What was the last part of your question? Do you remain with
The present on-call system.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I'm not sure at this time that we need to expand the transportation system. I do really, really appreciate that we have the transportation system that we have, the busing for the elderly and disabled and such. And I was actually, I don't know if many people know this, in the budget cuts that were made recently, one of them was our transportation driver. And that was disheartening to see. So I'm not opposed to having a larger transportation like the Sunshine Bus. I think that's a great model in St. Augustine where it's fare paid, in the future, and it has very, certain spots it drops off in town. So I do like that idea, but I'm, not of the mindset that we are going to pay to expand the current program with tax money, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it done on a fair basis.
Leanne, could you just evaluate the present on-call system? How do you think it needs to be improved or better funded, or is there any issues that you have with that?
I'm not aware of any issues. No one has mentioned any issues out of it. So I don't think that unless I'm missing something, we were saying, I think there are people that would like to see it expanded into a system that drops at certain locations and has a schedule and things of that nature. But right now, I'm not sure that we should go there outside of what it's meant to do, which is transport, our elderly and people who don't have any rides. I'm not sure that that's the best use of our tax money right now.
Okay, our next question will be from John Subers to Courtney.
Ms. Courtney, if you could make one change in the schools, what would it be? Queen for the day, what would it be?
Okay, so you said queen. So, I mean, I would pay our paraprofessionals more. I would, if I had to choose just one group, but I'm the queen. So I would pay all of them more. And, there are ways to do this. I know that Brevard County is getting really creative in increasing the pay of not just their teachers, but their support staff and their bus drivers and so on. And it's just not in the budget. And the budget is the smallest it's been in a very long time. And so, unfortunately, without my queenship, I would not be able to increase that pay for those staff members. But looking at other counties and getting creative with the ways that they are able to give raises, I would say that that's something that would be at the forefront of my decision making as a school board member.
Thank you. Sherry is going to ask the question to Jane.
Jane, what are the top 3 things that you would change as a county commissioner?
One of them is, and this may not really be something that a lot of people pay attention to. I've attended many commission meetings that are over in less than an hour because we have an infamous consent agenda. We'll come into a commission meeting and you'll see a couple of $1 million, 7A, 7B, 7C, everybody in favor of the consent agenda. There are many issues that are passed that are done with departments with no input from the commissioners whatsoever. It is not compulsory to read the backup. I know of one commissioner who's no longer going to be in office, thank God. His first week in office, he said to Dave Sullivan, "Oh, this is real easy, just 3 pages." And Dave Sullivan said, "Well, you got to read the backup." So I want any item that goes before the county commission that is more than $150,000 to be open for full public discussion. When we have come budget time, I was the only citizen, never mind candidate, who attended the workshops, and the departments are left in the dark. So I want everything more open, and I want more citizen input. And I promise if I'm elected, that's going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, this is a question from me to Alan. As part of your running for office, have you met with local elected officials? And if so, what have you learned about their local priorities?
I've met with most of our elected officials, and each one of them has a different priority as to where they stand on various issues. So I can't give you an in general of how they all stand, but what I can say is, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think that our city council actually listens intently and takes into account what the people have to say. I think there's a block. When you have, at the budget hearing, when you have 30 people standing up there and the last lady standing was I believe she was a teacher, and she was crying because she wasn't going to be able to afford the tax increase. I know that's just one person out of all of us, but it just was ignored. And so I think there's a big issue that all of the city council needs to come together with, and that is actually listening to what the people have to say, the fourth leg on the stool, the people. I think that that's an issue that really needs to come together. In general, the rest of them, some are in favor of the multifamily home we discussed earlier, some aren't. Some are in favor of technology, some aren't. There's no general consensus, I would say, of a way of thinking. of council, which is good because we need diversity up there. We need the ability to look at different problems in different ways.
Let me just follow up is that there was a comment made during that passing of the budget increase that most of the impact would fall on commercial businesses as opposed to residential. Do you agree with that? And what does that say to our residential developers that we're talking about?
Well, the reason that we have this is if you have a homesteaded home, then you get a 3% cap on your property tax increase. And all of the taxes are going up because property values went up. I think it was an average of almost 15%. The issue with the commercial, with our companies, small businesses, anybody that owns a commercial piece of property, rental units, all of that, is that they are not covered by homestead exemptions. So whatever their increase in value was, the percentage would go up accordingly on their property taxes. So businesses will get hit harder than what a resident, a homesteaded residence will get. So yes, I agree that that's an issue, and I'm not. So they held the property tax millage rate flat. The value went up, which means your property tax went up. I was in favor myself of some type of reduction of the millage rate in order to compensate, to help people during this time of high inflation, high gas prices, foods prices going up, material shortages, and so forth. I think that the city council should have stepped back a little bit and looked at the residents and then maybe did a little bit more or any interaction with the department heads to see if there really was anywhere that they might take a little chunk out here and there. They're planning to do that in the future. I think they should have done it now while we're having this inflationary problem.
Teresa, do you comment on this?
Yes, thank you. So I've been saying for months now that I think that when we're talking about budget and the millage rate, the property taxes, obviously those go hand in hand. And one of the big issues, I've attended countless budget and city council meetings over the last several months, and this budget process started really well, and actually I talked to Denise Bevins as well, our city manager, and she said this really starts in December. And it builds up and really starts to get hot and heavy, so to speak, in June. So since June, I've gone to budget meetings and city council meetings, and what I don't see is any challenge from our city council to our city staff to say, can you do it for less? What can we do and what you've presented to me that will save our taxpayers dollars? Where can we cut? Can 6 people do the job of 8 people somehow? Can we be more efficient somehow? Can we become more paperless somehow? Anybody get those notices to pay a $5 pet license? Those cost money to send out. I get them every year, and I always wonder, it's a $5 license, but they're sending out a letter, and sometimes multiple letters if you don't pay it on time. And it's such a waste of money. It's not efficient. So how can we engage in discourse early on in the budget process rather than at the 11th hour to really make sure that along the way we are saving taxpayer dollars and we're being fiscally conservative rather than trying to cut at the last minute?
Fernando, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I would. Thank you. So the way it usually works is that our rising property values are usually an economic indicator for the community as a whole. But under the current inflationary economy, it's not working. It's not helping us. So you show me a surplus, I will show you a full rollback. So if you want to continue the same services from the prior year and maintain the inflationary rate that we have at the same time, the question becomes is where do we get the funding to continue those essential services? So again, I did not see a surplus. I totally sat through the budget process the whole way like Teresa, and I saw the presentation put out. I think they did a great job. I didn't think they found the fat that we were all looking for. And I also think equally that the city council, did a dynamic job in working the budget and adjusting to the economic realities. It's a fine balance. I was the only candidate to make it on the ballot by signature. I don't know what the deal was with them or whatever, but I knocked on over 400 doors, and people do not want to lose their essential services. So it's a very fine line to balance. And like I said, I support their decision. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is Pastor Wines to Fernando. And again, I ask that you address the.
Fernando, some constituents have said that the current elected boards have treated the real estate industry too favorably. Do you agree? And what would your relationship with this industry be if elected?
Thank you for the question. So I was endorsed by the FCART, which is the Realtors Association of Flagga County, and it wasn't until we sat in front of a team and were grilled for about a half hour. I think that my endorsement came because of how I grew up and how I took advantages of the programs that allowed me to earn my first home. I was born and raised in New York, raised in the Bronx, and believe me, to get out of the Bronx, you have to be persistent and you have to, be passionate. And my first home was through a program called First Time for Home Buyers Program. It was under, was it Cuomo? Or Andrew Cuomo's son. He was the Secretary of Housing at the time, and that program was very, received well in New York. So I jumped on it with $10,000 down. I was able to buy it, put down on a 3-family house, which I still own today because of that program. So they endorsed me because of that, because I am a recipient of helping myself, using the programs that are out there to help myself. And so if you think they're favorable, if the audience thinks that they've been favorable to realtors, I can see with all the development going on. But the fact of the matter is, we have a crisis, a housing crisis going on, and it's in demand, and we need to support that. We need as a city to start helping our residents become independent homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. The next question is from John Subers to Leanne.
Leanne, what is your position on the increase of the sheriff's budget?
I actually have a positive, I feel very positive about the actual increase. As a resident, one of the things I expect the most is to feel secure in my community. I think they do an excellent job. I think their service times, if you've ever had to call the police, they're there within 10 to 15 minutes, are excellent. I know surrounding counties are actually at somewhere take an hour to 2 hours to get a police officer to your door. I think we are a community that expects that we treat our officers well, that we pay our officers well, that we continue to have that level of service from our sheriff. So I actually did not find it to be unreasonable, the ask. When they came back with actual cuts, and I think there was a lot of hysteria around it. If you go back and watch the budget meetings, there were really some not prepared for it. But the cuts themselves that they actually ended up making to get there were not unreasonable. I mean, they were, I don't know if you followed it, but to change the carpet out to match carpet in the other hallways at the county building, to paint the county building. Those seemed like a perfectly reasonable cuts to make to have good level of service out of our sheriff's office and to pay our men.
Next question, Sheriff, to Jane.
What's your position on the increase to the sheriff's budget?
Well, without saying anything bad about anyone, I think the sheriff is doing a very good job. I think that a lot of the increase in the budget is actually not going to the deputies. I've discussed this with Sheriff Staley. And I think that the sheriff's department is getting too much fat. I would like to see their budget cut because, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I need to do more homework. The sheriff gave me mountains and mountains of books to read, but we do not have high crime in Flagler County. The fire department is getting totally shafted. Their buildings are years old. Their equipment is old. I've been to most of the fire stations. I think it's a disgrace. I think we don't have money for helicopter service 24/7, and the sheriff has got boats. and he's got hundreds of cars. And although I'm not totally privy to everything, I think that the sheriff's budget is too high, and I think the fire department has suffered tremendously because of it. The helicopter, where our helicopter is stationed, they don't even have a kitchen. They have to go upstairs to use the sink. And these people fly people to trauma centers. So I'd like to see the sheriff's budget cut and go some to the fire and rescue department. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. Personally, I'm offended by your answer, but are you pro law enforcement or do you oppose law enforcement?
I'm totally pro law enforcement. We need, but apples to apples and peaches to peaches. Okay, overfunding is one thing.
Jane, I do have a follow-up question to that. Now, the surrounding counties do have a higher budget than Flagler County Sheriff's Office does. How do you think that that impacts with having employees with the Sheriff's County?
That is, as I said, I am not 100%. I still need some education here, and I don't want to see us lose officers. But if we're comparing our county to other counties, I think we need to look at what kind of crime rates. We don't have a very serious crime rate in Flagler County. So before giving an exact answer, I would need to do more homework and find out the rate of crime and the exposure to death that the officers in these other counties have versus here in Flagler County.
Thank you. Leanne, would you like to respond to that question as well?
Yeah, I mean, our crime since Sheriff Staley has taken office, I think, is down somewhere around 52%. I don't know if you lived here before. My husband and I can attest that we had gang violence in our own streets here. We had a shotgun blast through a front door by a Crip or a Blood or whatever it was. I think he does a tremendous job. I think the pay is underwhelming for the county. And I think that we can point to the low crime rate as an indicator that having proper staffing, good service levels here, it works. And it works. And I want to live in a community that doesn't have a high crime rate. So I'm willing to see that he's financed properly and that we get a sheriff's office up and running here. He needs a building. We're growing. We need things. And we're just in a period of that. And I think we need to be supportive of it.
Can I answer my answer, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. The sheriff is the one who decides with his budget what to pay his deputies. He can pay his deputies more money and sell one of his boats. I want the deputies to get the rate of pay they deserve to have. But the county is not the one who determines the pay. The sheriff determines how his budget is being used. And I want to see our officers getting proper pay. But don't blame the county. The sheriff can spend his budget the way he sees fit, and the deputies should have more money and less boats and cars.
Okay. Daryl, the next question is for you to Courtney.
Yes, thank you. This is the last year of Superintendent Middlestatt's contract. What is your assessment of her and Flagler School's system performance during her tenure?
So I think, this school year is going to be very telling as she has implemented the strategic plan that I mentioned in my previous response. I am a big fan of that strategic plan. I think that she and her team have laid out some very important goals to get our schools back on track after these challenging years and to get, our schools back, or our district back up to the A rating it was before. So I think that, closer to spring and summer when we can actually look at the strategic plan, enter the data, see where there have been gains, see where there have been successes, that will be a better time to evaluate the superintendent in terms of, renewing her contract. But as it stands now, I am very happy with the work that she's done for Flagler Schools, and I think that Flagler Schools is headed in the right direction under her leadership.
Thank you, Courtney. This is a question for Alan. What are your thoughts on the City Council's position on the Green Lion restaurant?
As I mentioned when in my opening statement, I fought in favor of the city council renegotiating the lease with the Green Lion. And I'm 100% in favor of economic development, and to see a business, to see the negotiations break down the way that they did and that a business suffer for it, I didn't like it at all. I think that there was, and actually there still is, but I don't think the Green Lion's interested anymore. And coming back to the table, we had a business there that was thriving, that people were enjoying the food, the golf course was benefiting it, and it was benefiting from the golf course, and it was an established business. And I think there should have been a way to renegotiate the lease that would have been a win-win for everybody, and that restaurant would still function after their lease runs out the first of the year.
And John, you want to ask the same question, Teresa?
Teresa, same question to you. What are your thoughts on the City Council's position on the Green Lion restaurant?
So I haven't heard a single person who's had a bad experience with the Green Lion restaurant, and obviously it's a gem for our community, and it's very sad to see what has transpired. I do think that, though, we need to not lose sight of the bigger picture, in that we need to make sure that the businesses that are taking space in our communities are not just providing a service to the public, but that they're also paying what they should be paying. And at the end of the day, we don't owe the Green Lion as a city anything specific. We have to make sure that we're engaged in mutually beneficial relationships. There's a lot of people in this city, and we have to make sure that we're engaged in contracts that are performing contracts for our community as a whole. And I would love to see them come to a deal. I think that we can work really hard to make it happen. As an attorney that negotiates things like this all the time, I think it's going to take maybe some creativity and really engaging in a back and forth, recognizing from both sides that there's going to be compromises that have to be made, and that we can still make it work. I don't think it's a dead deal quite yet. I have to have hope in that. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that every business that we have in our community, yes, we want the business to thrive, but we also have to make sure that it's an overall contribution to the community financially as well. And that's what was lacking in this situation.
Thank you. Pastor Wines, you have a question for Fernando?
What efforts have you volunteered for to improve the county at large that makes life better for all the residents of Flagler County, not just your immediate subdivision or community?
Is that question directed at me?
Yes.
And it was, can you repeat it? Was something about the county?
It's a big question.
But it's for the county, not for the city.
Yeah. Basically, what have you volunteered for to improve the county at large, not necessarily within your own neighborhood or community?
Okay, that's a good question, because I sit on the planning board right now, the Flagler County Planning and Development Advisory Board. This is a board that sees through many applicants that come through there, but at the same time, besides the developers, we also see groups, community leaders that go up there with their concerns about these developments. So I think I have a proven record on there. I've been serving for several months now, almost a year. And what I found that serving on that board is that everybody that comes as a developer there, everyone that sits on this side, they have to come in with a complete application. It's not that, we're pro-development and just throw everything up there and say, hey, yeah, go ahead. No, they have to prove to me that they have a complete package. Give us some environmental impacts. Give us some traffic impact reports. Give us, as far as the groups, a lot of groups, when they show up in person, 200, 300 of them, they do make an impact. And that's what I would like to tell the residents, that if you really want to make an impact, you have to show up like the folks did at the Green Lion. I remember everybody on that dais making an about face after one of the decisions that they made. And so I think I've come a long way with the volunteering there. I think I've learned a lot, and I've also helped a lot in the county through that avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's a question for Courtney. This question is from one of our live stream partners, Ask Flagler. It's been almost a year since protests outside a school board meeting over a contentious library book erupted and led to multiple instances of police intervention. How can the school board keep emotional topics from sparking situations like what happened that day?
The short answer there would be by following school board policy. So there are policies in place that the community members, whether it be parents or other community members, that can follow to ensure that their voices are heard. And as a school board member, I think that it is absolutely essential that we are listening to all voices in our community. I was there that night, and it wasn't pretty. It was very scary, and it was the opposite of unity. And as a school board member, I will encourage the board, encourage the district to increase the transparency to the public, to the parents, to the families, so that they know exactly how to challenge a book, challenge curriculum, the right way, following policy, so that their voices are heard. Because we do want all voices heard, but we want those voices heard in a way that sets a positive example for our students. Because that night in November was the worst example that we could set for our students, and it was the ugliest version of Flagler that I've ever seen. And I grew up here, and I know how beautiful a community it is here in Flagler, and I'm just so proud to be a community member here in Flagler. And as a school board member, I will stop at nothing to make sure that Flagler is seen as the beautiful community that it is.
Thank you. Okay, there's a question for the rest of the candidates. Again, this question is from Ask Flagler. Many residents have stated the need to preserve Flagler County's natural spaces from being developed on. How highly do you prioritize this goal, and what specific steps can be taken to achieve it? We'll start with Jane. Certainly, always. Many residents have stated the need to preserve Flagler County's natural spaces from being developed on. How highly do you prioritize this goal, and what specific steps can be taken to achieve it?
One of the things that I would do as a realtor for 43 years and a former zoning board member, I don't want to see helter-skelter zoning changes and variances that are going to impact the natural beauty of what attracted my husband and me to Flagler County when we moved here. I don't like the way some development currently, pardon my sore throat, is being done without any concern with preserving the natural beauty that we have. It is very, very important that we don't just give special exceptions. I did help people in Palm Coast, for instance, the people who live in Toscana, which is nowhere near me, in Hidden Lakes, when Palm Coast approved 23 acres of storage facilities across the street from their home, destroying all this natural beauty. I helped them. Unfortunately, they lost their lawsuit. This needs to stop. We cannot allow development in areas that are going to destroy the beauty. We need to keep our beautiful areas, and our development has to be carefully planned with intelligence and honesty and integrity, which in my opinion is missing big time. Thank you.
Alan, would you like to answer that question? If anyone wants me to repeat it, just let me know.
Yeah, please repeat it.
Sure. Many residents have stated the need to preserve Flagler County's natural spaces from being developed on. How highly do you prioritize this goal, and what specific steps can be taken to achieve it?
When I moved here 39 years ago, there was just a handful of residents, and everywhere you looked was trees and beautiful landscape. What I think we have lost is that we're not requiring developers to leave over X amount of homes, and I don't know what that number would be, but to leave green spaces You know, we have some beautiful parks in Palm Coast, some beautiful area that the city is preserving, but I think developers should reserve some areas in their developments for green space, for animals to be, for people to enjoy in a natural and park-like setting. I think it's really up to the city and the county in the particular areas that the county is having development to insist that developers leave some space. I know that the development off of Ryan Drive in Palm Coast, I believe it had initially had a 5-acre park set aside, and the city said that they, at this time, didn't need the park or didn't have the resources to take care of it if it became a park. So they're now allowed to build on it, and they transferred some of that developer transferred some of the ownership of other property out by a park in Seminole Woods. But I really think we need to reserve green space in our development area and keep a natural look in Palm Coast, because after all, that is the reason most of us moved here.
Thanks, Alan. Fernando, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, thank you. So special exceptions is where it's at. That's where we really have to draw the line. That's where we need to concentrate and really hold the line. Now, let's remember that laws come down from Tallahassee all the way down to the local government. And we as a local government, we're supposed to protect the rights of builders, of landowners, developers. I have a house here, and if I didn't have a pool and I wanted to build a pool, would I want Alan next door to me telling me I can't build a pool? No, I have the right to build on that. So we have to respect that, number one. But I think that the city needs to do what they need to do at that stage where they're going to grant special exceptions. That's where it's at. That's what we really have to look for.
Explain to the public who may not be familiar with special exceptions. What does that mean?
Well, you have some areas that are zone commercial. You have some areas that are zone residential. You have some areas that are zone green space. So that's where we need to draw the line. We need to stop, look, and sit and look at the map overall and say, oh, there's not that much green space left. Let's hold the line here. That's what we got to do. Thank you.
Leanne, would you like to answer the question? Would you like me to repeat it?
No, that's okay. Thank you. So one of the reasons I'm sitting here today is because I initially started noticing board behaviorisms or activities when I fought against the development that was to go on the L section golf course. I am discouraged that boards here routinely don't seem to take into consideration abutting neighborhoods. They don't call for buffers, more trees to be left. The tree surveys are abysmal. The type of tree we require to plant back is not what I would call, acceptable hardwood trees. I'd like to see more oaks planted back. I'm also a member of the Kings Road District Historical Group. A lot of people think that our history here started with Garfield, but we actually have a lot of sites out in the West that are Revolutionary War through Civil War, and it is my hope that as we move west with development, that we get more robust boards that ensure that they remain steadfast in preserving our history here, that we encourage our developers to leave green space, borders, buffers, more trees, and certainly planting back more hardier trees at that.
Thank you. Teresa?
So I want to kind of tag on to what Leanne was just talking about with regards to our historical sites. I believe the count now is about 600 marked historical sites that we have in Flagler County, and we have a very unique opportunity as we expand to preserve those. I think one of the things that everybody can kind of get on board with is remembering our history and preserving our history. And we have a really unique opportunity in that we can turn this into a little bit of tourism and actually bring some money into the county by turning in these historical sites into some type of tourism kind of akin to what St. Augustine has. And in that, we would be preserving green space as well. So we kind of kill two birds with one stone and bring some money into the county. Some things that people don't realize are little hidden gems here and there that we need to fight to preserve, like our last remaining hard canopy on Palm Coast Parkway. Right now, there is money that is being vied for in Tallahassee so that we can preserve that property. So we have to keep those small things in mind. A lot of people think that preserving green space means that we're not going to allow large expanses of land to be built on, and that's not necessarily the case. We can still balance that. We can still have development. We can still bring in commercial, but we can still preserve some of our gems like our last remaining hard canopy. And we need to make sure, again, that we are vying for federal and state grant and tax dollars so that we can do that at a lesser cost to the taxpayer here in Palm Coast.
Thank you. This will, much to your relief, I'm sure, candidates, and maybe to the public as well, is our last question. And so this is, I'm going to start with Courtney. The school board is calling for the renewal of the half-cent sales tax. So perhaps you can explain what that. I'm going to overrule our time. This is an important one. So go ahead. Explain what it is, and then I'm going to ask everyone's quick yay or nay on it. Go ahead.
So the half-cent renewal is not a new tax. It is a renewal, and I am in full support of it. Things that it has funded in the past have been, ranged from improving athletic fields to increasing campus safety to innovating learning spaces, really bringing education into the 21st century and helping students learn and be prepared for careers in the future after graduation. Some things that the district is looking towards with this half-cent renewal, if it is passed on November 8th, is remote access and increased security to our schools. So instead of having a key that unlocks a door, then doors can be locked remotely. And I think that's extremely important in today's climate for our schools. And it's one of my top priorities is enhancing the school safety. Other things that the half penny can do is upgrade technology. And one of the most famous things that it did was it put a device in every student's hand. And I think that with this new renewal, it can upgrade those devices and also increase the internet capabilities. And I might be wrong on this, but you mentioned the internet back to the West. And I think that some of the funds can be put towards providing internet for students in the western part of the county. So yes, vote yes on half-cent renewal.
So in the interest of time, because I'm being yelled at, but just a raise of hands, everyone in favor of the renewal of the half-cent sales tax? Okay, all the other candidates, is that correct? Okay, all right, thank you guys. All right, we're going to go into our closing remarks, and we're going to start with Courtney. You have 1.5 minutes to close.
So thank you all for coming tonight and listening to us speak. And if you have any other questions that you would like that I haven't answered, please feel free to reach out. You can find me on Facebook or catch me as I'm leaving, and I'd be more than happy to connect with you. One thing I didn't really get to talk about were the flagships here in Flagler. Flagler County is such a unique school district that we have so many different programs, and I can't name all of them, but I'll name a few. The Fire Academy, for example, at Flagler Palm Coast High School, allows for students to explore the career of becoming a firefighter and even provides them with certification to advance in their career before they graduate high school. That is just one example of just so many flagships available here in Flagler. One of the flagships that closed down last year, unfortunately, was the teaching flagship at Flagler Palm Coast High School. And as a school board member, I will advocate to bring that flagship back, as well as other flagships, such as financial literacy, like Daryl mentioned in a previous question, and so on, because those flagships are what attracts families to Flagler and what makes Flagler so unique and so amazing. So as a school board member, I will be a strong advocate for continuing to make Flagler unique in that regard. Thank you.
Teresa?
So thank you all for being here. Thank you for everybody who's listening, and thank you to Tiger Bay for putting on this event and also for advocating for people coming together from all diverse backgrounds and really being able to engage in this type of discourse and discussion, because our country literally depends on it. I've been an attorney now for 7 years, and in my job as an attorney, I literally have to advocate and fight for the legal rights for people every single day. I have to engage in analytical problem solving preparation like you couldn't believe. This job calls for hard work, it calls for preparation, it calls for transparency, and it calls for someone to fight for you for what you deserve and for what the law says that you deserve. And that's exactly what I've been doing for several years. The comment was made earlier that if you haven't been to the podium and in the middle of town hall or city hall and advocating, how can you call yourself a fighter? Well, I haven't put myself in the spotlight because it's not about me. It's about you. I've been the advocate in the background fighting for people's legal rights for a very long time, and I don't need to be recognized for it because I'm not here for me. I'm here for every single one of you, and I look forward to earning your vote in November. I want to say thank you to the Firefighter Local Union for endorsing me. That means the world to me, and I really look forward to representing every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Leanne?
Yes, again, thank you for coming out tonight. I just want to say that I am a civic-minded individual. I am capable of making sane decisions that are rational, that are well thought out, that I take into account due diligence. I ask a lot of questions, and I want to engage with the county commission up on the dais and make sure that we are doing what is in the best interest of you and your tax dollar at all times. I also want to say that, regardless, as you are listening to everyone up here tonight, just as a resident, that when you go in to vote, I say this to my son all the time, you are one politician away from living a life that you don't want to live. There is always going to be people on the board that don't always act in the interest of you. So I ask that as we all go out to vote, that we ensure that we elect officials that want to do what's right for this community, that uphold our quality of life throughout this growth, and that are wonderful stewards of our tax dollar, especially during this inflationary time. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Fernando?
Folks, I just want to remind you that our city is growing, and with growth comes growing pains. And I just want to remind you that the stakes have never been greater for our city, Palm Coast. Our prosperity and our security are in the balance moving forward, and so is our opportunity. November 8th is going to creep around real quick, and the time of voting is going to be here. And you're going to go into that booth, and you're going to have 2 ballots in your hands. And it's not going to be about my opponent or me. Keep in mind that you're there because you are voting for the future of Palm Coast. That's what it's about. And you know where I stand. I think I've relayed my message today, my vision, and I humbly ask for your support. And let's work together. Together we could, make things better for everybody in our quality of life, continue to enhancing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Alan?
I'd like to also thank everybody that showed up tonight, and thank you, Tiger Bay, for hosting this, and thanks to whoever's listening on the radio. I am a strong community resident. I am a member of the Flagler Open Arms Recovery Services. I'm a member of the Flagler Drug Court. Tries to help people with those issues that are also homeless. Not all are, but many are. I'm also a person that has held a couple of Christmas time fundraisers to help local families that have no money. So I work heavily with the community. But I'm also a person of action, and that is why I stand at the podium and fight for you. Words are cheap. Action is where it's at. I'm also a patent holder. I have 2 patents in my name. I am used to answering questions and figuring out problems that other people have given up on. I have a patent in marine biology and another one in mechanical engineering. So I also think that the city council needs diversity. I mentioned that earlier. I'm a 35-year local small business owner. I don't think there's any other candidate or city council person that can claim that long of a business history. So in closing, I'd just like to say that join me in keeping Palm Coast a place that we're all proud to call home. And I would love to have your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Jane?
I believe government belongs to everybody, not me. I have given tirelessly for 20 years straight, ever since I moved here. My experience and my integrity speaks for itself, starting from getting guardrails on the old Dixie Bridge before someone would fall over into I-95, telling the county not to buy the old hospital, not to buy the old barn out west, not to allow Captain's Barbecue to try to build a big building so they could serve 150 people liquor. I would never take a contribution from anyone suing the county. I have been talked against the Sears building purchase. I would very much want to extend the 3-minute time period at commission meetings to 5 minutes. We all get up here and say, vote for me, vote for me. But when you come to talk to us, you get shut up after 3 minutes. That has to stop. At least 5 minutes. I will hold community meetings after every county commission meeting so I can hear what you have to say. My experience and my involvement is on the internet. It's in Flagler Live, and I am very proud of my 20 years of dedicated efforts on my time and my dime. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all the candidates for what was a lively but respectful discussion. That's exactly what we wanted, was our mission. I'd also like to thank my panelists and for all you do for our community. Each one is really a pillar here. I'd like to thank our partners, Flagler Live, Ask Flagler, WNZF, for participating. I'd like to thank you all for coming out here. In particular, I want to thank my committee, Danielle Anderson, and she's in the back, and she's just an anchor for not only for our committee, but for our entire club, Cherie Orr. Thank you so much, Cherie, for all you've done. And I'll now turn it back over to Greg Davis.
And I want to thank you all. Great committee, great discussion. Hope everybody got change. So again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of the candidates for your commitment to public service. Yeah. Thank you all. I think that we need more of that. So with that, I thank you. We look forward to the most important thing that we can all do in a democracy is to vote. So vote. And I thank you. Be well. Be safe.